The 4th of July holiday begins in a couple of days, and while we're all looking forward to time with family and, of course, friends, it's also an opportunity for terror groups like ISIS to make a very big statement.
Yeah, Homeland Security posted a tweet asking for everyone to be vigilant. If you see something suspicious, report it ASAP. Common sense. That tweet comes just days after the FBI issued a warning of possible terrorist threats around the July 4th holiday. They have legitimate concern of lone wolf attackers inspired by ISIS, which seem to be happening more and more. Authorities in many locations plan to beef up security this weekend.
All right, with us is former FBI Special Agent and Air Marshal Jonathan Gilliam. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here. How credible are these threats?
Very credible. And let me tell you, it's got me concerned. It's got a lot of FBI individuals concerned.
It feels like we hear more and more authorities advising people to be vigilant, be cautious. We've received threats. And when things don't happen, I think the general public starts to feel perhaps a false sense of safety.
Well, the general public needs to look at it this way. If I told you every night the reality of the potential of a burglar coming into your home, or how many children are abducted inside the United States, you would completely live in fear. But then after a while, you would drop your guard. But every night, you do go to bed and lock your doors. You make sure that your windows are secured. And then when you're sleeping, if you have a dog and it barks or you hear a creak in your house, you react in a very aware manner, if that's not normal. That's what people need to realize. That's the world that you live in now when it comes to events, when it comes to public transportation, or just being in a big city and a roundabout. You need to be aware that the potential of an attack is there. That's where we live now. You don't fear every night when you go to sleep. You shouldn't be completely paralyzed by fear when you go to an event or when you get on a train or a bus, but you should be aware.
Be aware of your surroundings, basically,
right,
is what you're saying. Yeah. So from what we understand, these could be potentially sort of small-scale lone wolf attacks. But, Jonathan, it seems to me like those are more difficult to get a handle on, to track.
They are, but it's pretty easy for us and even the general public to predict what type of an attack could happen. Instead of calling them lone wolves, let's call them homegrown operatives. And we know that they belong to this particular Islamic fundamental ideology, so you can go and see what type of attacks are they carrying out. What is the typical type of attack? The one that would affect most people this weekend is going to be a gun or a knife, potentially a car bomb, but that's going to be logistically harder for them to actually carry out. But we can look at historically what they're doing.
All right, Jonathan, ISIS claimed recent attacks at a Tunisian beach resort where 38 people were killed and at a Kuwaiti mosque where 27 people lost their lives during Friday prayers. These attacks seem to be happening more and more in places where historically we have felt safe. What can we do to keep ourselves safe, and what sorts of places are most vulnerable to these types of attacks?
So here's a couple things that people can look at, and this is the takeaway. Critical areas. A critical area is someplace where people either let their guard down, but masses of people will congregate. That's the first thing. Then you got to look at the critical times for those areas. That beach in Tunisia at 3 o'clock in the morning is not a critical time. But at 12 o'clock in the afternoon on a weekend, it's very critical because it's going to be slammed with people. So critical areas, critical times, and then you want to look at the avenues of approach that an attacker may come. You know there's not going to be a car bomb on the beach, so you need to think, what if somebody comes up here? What are they going to do? Probably a gun, maybe a knife. And have in your mind, where am I going to go if this happens? How will I react? If you think about those three things, critical areas, critical times, and avenues of approach, you will be able to facilitate an action when something happens rather than a reaction that is just made up as you go along.